Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Kerner, and this is Tech Marketing Rewired. Today, I am thrilled to be speaking with Jim Lecinski, former Google exec and professor of marketing from Northwestern Kellogg, who literally wrote the book on AI marketing. It's called the AI Marketing Canvas and is about to do it again. He's coming out with his second edition in the fall because apparently the world has changed a bit in the last 4 years. Go figure. In our discussion, Jim breaks down why now is a marketer's moment of truth before they get left behind. You may be feel like you're late to the game, but you're really not, and now is the time to jump on board. What I love about this first edition of the AI Marketing Canvas is the practical advice and roadmap that Jim lays out that makes implementing AI across an organization, even large ones, very accessible. So we spent a good deal of time on the foundational aspects of his framework, like the five-stage roadmap, but we really dug into how this approach is even more applicable in the age of agents and MCP and composability and all the other emerging trends that are out there. So, if you're struggling to make AI work in your marketing organization or just getting started, this episode is definitely for you. But before we start, I want to mention this podcast is sponsored by my company, Mighty and True. Mighty and True helps CMOs accelerate strategies that may be lagging or you can't get to them due to resource or skill constraints. We help deliver on these strategies with our expert team tailored for your use case, plus a combination of our expert frameworks tailored for technology marketing, AI, and the human context of our tech marketing experts. Learn more at www.mightyandtrue.com. Okay, that's it. Let's get to it. This is Tech Marketing Rewired. All right, Jim, how you doing? Thanks for being on.
Hi, Kevin. Great to be with you.
Yeah, I was super excited to talk to you. I know I reached out kind of cold, and I was really happy that you decided to join me. And of course, I read your book, and so I'm a little bit of fanboying over having you on the podcast this morning.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited to have this conversation and been looking forward to it.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of jump into it because there's so much to talk about. Um, from your perspective, like what are the big things that happened between the first edition and this pending second edition that was made you and your partner go, okay, it's time to write this second edition?
Yeah, so we worked on the first edition of the book, The AI Marketing Canvas, 2019, 2020. We met over Zoom during that COVID period and kind of wrote it virtually, which was kind of a cool experience. And at that time, pre-ChatGPT, obviously, what we'll call right brain Gen AI was really not commercially viable at that point. So most of what we had focused on in the book was, I guess, what we're now referring to collectively as sort of old school predictive AI, machine learning, sort of left brain AI. And so we focused on applications where marketers could, for example, look at weekly sales data, market share data, spreadsheets, CSV files, those kinds of things. Use AI to help spot anomalies. That kind of, left brain. By the way, still very viable applications of AI today. But what's changed, obviously, is now the generative pre-trained transformers have hit the scene. Over the last couple of years. I guess we're coming up to the third anniversary this November of the official ChatGPT launch. And, Google was slow out of the gate with what then was known initially as Bard, but has roared back with Gemini 2.5 Pro. And I guess we'd probably throw Claude from Anthropic in there as the three, what's commonly called frontier models. And so, sort of the power of those and the commercial viability, the accessibility of those, I think has moved us from a left brain AI world to now a whole brain, left and right, predictive and generative world. And that's what, the agents and other things we can talk about, but that was the big prime mover for us to say, hey, time to do a revision, update the book.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think the marketers, because of all those things, are still reeling from this pace of change. I mean, it's just crazy how me as a marketer, I love it. I love testing all this stuff and being inside of it, but it's just really crazy. Is another goal of the book just to give them more of a sense of control, like even more control, because reading the first book really felt like, okay, this is a roadmap to do this stuff. But the next edition, I guess, will just be a further um, insight into that, trying to give people a sense of control over things.
Yeah, I mean, that's an insightful question, right? Because as authors, obviously you have content goals, but you have emotional goals for your readers. And so beyond the content, yeah, we wanted to give them the sense, as you suggest, of, hey, you know what? I can do this. It's possible. It's doable. Maybe I didn't grow up as a computer scientist. That's not my background or my training. Most marketers don't come from that kind of background. So we wanted to give them that sense of confidence and control, but at the same time also give them a little sense of urgency, light some fire, right? Like, you know we say, like,
Let's do this.
it's not too late, but the train's leaving the
Yeah.
station.
Yeah. It's so true. It's like, it really isn't too late yet, but you really need to be on board now. Like, the doors are closing, and it's a really good time for that. So, one of the foundational things of the book is the 5-step canvas that you lay out. I'd love for just to set some context here for people that may have not read the book. If you could just briefly walk us through those stages. And then I'm kind of geeking out over there may be some new use cases or case studies that are within those 5 steps that you could elaborate on. I'm just wondering what you're now seeing that might be more context to those 5 steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the question that has frequently come up for us, and in my teaching, in my consulting work, my advising work, is like, okay, great. Now that I have, as a marketer, an understanding of how AI works, and we'll talk about the use cases in a minute. I know what those are. Like, how do I actually get started? What do I do on Monday morning? How do I implement this? Right. So we go from sort of conception to implementation. And there's a lot of evidence out there from the AI Marketing Association and others that say, IBM has a recent survey out that says, actually, sort of lack of understanding of how to implement this thing, along with lack of understanding of use cases, are actually the two biggest barriers holding marketers back. Which, I don't know about you, Kevin, but that frankly surprised me. I thought it would be, lack of technology understanding, lack of budget, lack of clarity as to whether it should be the CIO or the marketing team who leads, privacy, hallucination concerns. And those are all important, but lack of roadmap, right, was the big one. So we said, well, maybe we can offer a roadmap. So what did we do here is we used a research technique that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, but we went out and did first party interviews, discussions, surveys with dozens and dozens of marketers, big and small, US and international, B2B, B2C, successful with AI implementations, and some who were not so successful with AI implementations, and then cataloged those responses. And based on the responses, tried to see if there was any pattern that emerged as to what are the successful winners doing and what are those who are struggling or failing doing, such that we could lay it out as a repeatable pattern for those next folks going down this path. And so, as you alluded to, we identified actually a very, very consistent set of 5 steps. And briefly, those are as follows. The first step is you have to have some data to train the machines, right? I mean, these machines all operate based on, yes, public data as pre-trained technologies, but you need to bring some zero and first party data. So that's the foundation layer. You can't really play this game successfully to the fullest unless you have some training data that you can bring. And again, by the way, I should just point out, Kevin, of course, we're talking about enterprise, corporate versions of these tools. We're not talking about like free consumer ChatGPT, but like for your business. So I'm assuming you have
Yeah.
ChatGPT Enterprise or Teams. Second step then, and this is where a lot of teams kind of, we found, surprisingly misstepped. A lot of teams at this point want to go hire their own computer scientists and build their own algorithms and buy companies and do all this kind of stuff. But it's sort of a crawl, walk, run. So once you've got your training data, the second step in the best practice is to say, I'm working with all kinds of great partners, right? Any marketing team is working with TikTok and Instagram, Meta, Facebook, Google, and YouTube. Maybe you're using MailChimp, right, from Intuit, if you're an SMB for your email. Well, guess what? All of those companies, all of your partners now have AI powered features. And so bring your data to those partners. So just 2 examples, maybe 3 examples. This is Advantage Plus on Facebook. This is Performance Max on Google. This is if you're using MailChimp, you use their subject line generator tool, right? And their delivery time generator tool to find, what's the best subject line for the right person to land in my inbox at the right time. And so in most cases, that's not even an upcharge or extra cost working with those partners, right? So just get that experience under your belt. The best teams at this point name what's called an AI marketing champion, and that's somebody in the marketing department, typically a 20% second hat role, where they're starting to catalog old way, new way across all these experiments. So that way we're kind of archiving and memorializing the lift or the delta between old way and AI powered new way. Doing lunch and learns, book of the month clubs, trainings for the marketing team, et cetera. But you can't rely, as great as they are, you can't rely on outsourced partners forever. You have to, at some point, start to build that competency in-house and in-source. And that's the third stage, doing some in-house experiments. And then at that point, you say, well, now we really know what the ROI of this is. And now it's time to go to the CFO and say, we need some more staff. Maybe we need some technology that we need to invest in. Maybe we need to even buy a company. But now you can put a solid business case in place at that fourth step. And that's where most companies will and should top out. But there are a few companies, we talk about John Deere and others in the book, who actually have taken what they've built for themselves in those four steps, and they're able to then license it, sell it to partners or competitors as a wholly new additional revenue stream. And so that's sort of the zero to hero, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages up in the canvas, Kevin.
Yeah, and I mean, it's such a really logical, good way to think about this stuff. It doesn't surprise me that adoption is um, an issue more than the technology. It's like you get access to the technology. Everyone wants to be in it and doing it. Sometimes you just don't know where to start sometimes. And certainly if you're a large enterprise, you just don't know how to scale. Like, how do you scale this stuff? It's a people problem in
It
most cases,
is.
right?
It is. And, of course, we've all learned this term over the last couple of years, pilotitis, right? Like it's easy to spin up lots of pilots, have something cool to talk about on stage at a conference, but it's sort of a side dish, right? It's not center of the plate. So, to use your word, how do we scale it, right? So, I've been fortunate enough to done some work with the great folks over at Coca-Cola who are leaders in this AI space, certainly within the packaged goods, CPG, consumables category. And they talk about plan for scale from the start. Don't just spin up little things that
Hmm.
sound cool. And
Hmm.
then at some point you go, can we scale this? Does it even scale? Should we scale it? Like
Yeah.
plan for scale from zero.
Yeah. You know what confuses some of that to my perspective, some is how composable this stuff is, how easy it is to buy a new tool, hook it up. It's just supposed to work. There's so many smaller tools now. The stack is sort of breaking apart into all of these pieces. And then at the same time, in your core platforms, HubSpot, Salesforce, everything else, they have AI built into them. So it's really, as a marketer, there's a lot of shiny object syndrome going on because there's so
Totally.
much stuff.
And now I have a hot take, maybe a somewhat controversial view on this, but I would say for most marketing teams in the early stages of transitioning to be an AI first, AI powered marketing organization, avoiding the shiny object, needle in a haystack chase for small tools, and centering on a few big platforms is
Yeah,
generally my advice.
yeah.
I talked to a marketing team who shall remain nameless last week who said to me, "Oh, we found two guys in Bulgaria who no one's ever heard of before, right? Who've written this cool thing." And I'm like, "Well, great, except it doesn't integrate with any of your other tools." And they said, "Oh yeah, well, we're getting
Yeah.
Deloitte in here now, and they're going to write some custom code for." I said, "Guys, you know what? Like, pick a frontier model,
Now let's give them
right?
all our data. Let's just hand them
Right.
all our data too.
I mean,
This is
right?
great.
So like
Yeah,
pick a frontier model, set some use cases, train the heck out of your teams within the frontier model, along
mhm.
with some of your core tools like Salesforce or HubSpot, et cetera. But this proliferation of tiny tools is not really a good plan.
I'm dying to ask you of the companies that you see because you have the canvas out there now. Where are you seeing most companies being at this stage of the 5 steps? Can you even
Yeah.
guess?
So that's going to vary by category. So given that the first step is, proprietary zero first party data, obviously the business models, the categories, the companies that have that inherently have a leg up. So if you're in financial services, insurance, every one of your customers is completely identifiable, right? You know their name, their email address, their mobile phone number, all that kind of stuff. You have a direct one-to-one relationship. However, if you're selling toothpaste, right, through drugstores and Walmart, now your ability to have zero and first party data is not quite at that level. Though that said, there's lots of CPG marketers who've been doing this for a long time, gathering data. So again, it depends on category, but I would say most marketers sort of find themselves in stage 2 to stage 3, right? We've been working with our partners, trying a lot of their tools in their platform. Maybe we've spun up one or two bigger swings on our own, but that's where about most folks are. Again, with a few exceptions like John Deere and Starbucks and Coke that are, really best in class.
Yeah, I want to get into your two box thing here in a sec, because this may
Uh-huh.
lead to it. But the,
Yeah.
but the, I would guess that it's mostly internally facing stuff. It's not externally facing. But on the monetization side that you mentioned, that particular stage is super interesting to me, both from a potential new product perspective, but also from a brand perspective. I think you posted something about, was it Ralph Lauren did
Mm-hmm.
something? Yeah, I mean, so to extend your expertise of AI to either a new product or a new brand, like a new brand experience is really interesting. I'd guess, just mention that as a comment, but I would guess a lot of companies aren't there yet. They're more in the internally facing stuff, automation and synthesis and those type of things.
Yeah, that's right. And let's chat for a minute about sort of use cases since you teed that up. Uh, like lots of really strong, good consultancies and ad agencies and advisors out there cataloging. I saw an article the other day, the 347 use cases for AI in marketing. And like, great, I'm glad somebody's comprehensively
That's
logging
it?
that. Yeah, I know. But like most marketers can't go meeting to meeting saying, Kevin, is this use case 341 or
Right.
173, right? Like, so, being a business school professor, of course, we like to think in two by twos.
Yeah, I
And
love it. I love a good 2 by 2.
right, don't we all? So here's how I think about use cases. So the first is what is the goal you're trying to achieve by employing AI into your marketing function? So two broad buckets. One is productivity, efficiency, doing the same as you always did but faster and cheaper. And then the second possible goal is value creation, transformation, growth, new to the world, never before possible things. And then the other axis, the vertical axis, is and who would benefit from either of those two kinds of outcomes? You internally, your marketing team behind your firewall, behind your four walls, or externally, your customers. So now we have a sort of a very nice two by two. Just two quick examples. Internal and productivity. Well, we all write project briefs, creative briefs. We've all done this for 100 years. Well, now with a little bit of training, you can get a first draft spit out pretty quickly of a creative brief out of most any AI tool, even basic chat GPT. Well, it's no different than the creative brief looked like when you or I started our careers, Kevin. Uh, but instead of taking 6 weeks to get to a first draft, now we have a draft in 6 minutes. So that's clearly internal. Your customers, I hope, don't see your creative briefs. So, right, that's internal and efficiency. And then you mentioned Ralph Lauren, IKEA, and others are kind of mining that fourth quadrant where it's external and value creation. So, IKEA is a great example. We know them for cheap bookcases, but of course, their mission, vision in life is to help all of us, economically, affordably transform our home into that sort of Scandinavian concept of hygge, right? That coziness and comfortableness. But I don't have an interior designer eye or expertise. I'm not particularly good at it. So IKEA would love to give a human interior designer, a person with that expertise, to every one of its customers. But as a worldwide company, there aren't enough interior designers in the world, and even if there were, IKEA couldn't afford to do that. So what do? They built a chatbot experience where I can take video of my living room, my bedroom, I answer a bunch of questions back and forth, and it now custom designs a personalized makeover room experience for me. So that's not sort of just doing the same thing I always did before, but cheaper or faster. That's a new to the world value creation, transformational experience for their customers. And obviously it's external. So, sort of the first question is, which of those four quadrants are we looking to drive value in? And I ask marketers, what is it in your business, if you could either predict it better or generate it better or faster, would unlock incremental value in those quadrants?
Wow, yeah, that's such a great way to look at it. And I guess depending on your business model, you could start on one end or the other. Like we work with a lot of SaaS brands. I'm thinking of like Qualified. I talked to their CMO on one of the podcasts, but they have an external product that is called Piper, and it's a SDR or BDR AI product, and they monetize it and sell it. And so they're very much heavily on the external side,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's a growth thing. But then you have retail, uh, or even agencies. Really, if you think about agencies, we're probably more productivity and internal than we are growth and external right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will change over time. Um, on the agency front, super interesting thought that I had as you were talking through things. So of course, I'm thinking selfishly here,
Yeah.
but we built a platform called Flow, which is it's a like customer dashboard S thing. We built it in Glide, which is a no code app, and Glide has some AI capability. But the thing we're finding that agencies can activate are all the frameworks that we've built over all the years. And I've been doing this for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and so I built so many, just like these type of things. I wonder if you see agencies starting to monetize their knowledge set into an externally facing product in some way. That seems like a great use case for the four box here.
Yeah, totally. And look, I mean, I don't need to tell you, agency world. I spent 18 years of my career in the agency world, right? Has sort of generally struggled through sort of digital transformation and what do we do about social? What do we do about mobile? What do we do about search, et cetera? And now here comes another existential moment for the agencies. Well, like big holding companies, right, are sort of low margin business. So CapEx, OpEx investment, acquisitions, acquiring technology, paying for talent, just is difficult in the general agency economic model. So they're kind of a little challenged in that sense. But if you think about this, even internally, there's so much knowledge, process flow, tools, techniques. Even using, I'll use the consumer-facing version of it, but for agencies to build internal or enterprise custom GPTs, right? That just do this. Like agencies are really good at even competitive analysis. Well, every agency has a process for doing this. Well, instead of starting from scratch with your assistant account executives doing that, opening a blank Word document, for gosh sakes, build an internal, I'll call it custom GPT, right? That jumpstarts that.
Yeah, and that every company has those too, just not just agencies, but every company has their institutionalized way of doing things. Okay,
Right.
so I wanted to talk about another trend that I'm seeing quite a bit, and maybe it's one of the dangers that you point out some dangers in your book, but the thing that really seems to be front of mind for many larger enterprises certainly is privacy and security, and the sort of danger of large language model versus the now creation of these small personal models that might be much more secure. Maybe generally talk about what dangers you see in the five dangers, because I wanted to dig into that. You to at least bring that up a bit, and then how do you what's the change in the privacy concerns for enterprises right now?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think it's surprising, these sticky stories. Most marketing teams that I talk about still remember, I guess what was Kevin, 2 summers ago, maybe longer, when those Samsung engineers like dumped a bunch of their code base
Yeah.
from the Galaxy
Oh yeah.
phone into public chat GPT, and then it leaked and all this. So like this is a really surprisingly sticky story when I talk to marketers, like, we don't want to be like Samsung. Like, okay, well, first of all, that was 3 years ago. And second of all, they were just throwing stuff into consumer public free chat GPT. But, I'm seeing sort of almost a weird rebound privacy thing happening as rightly CIOs and CTOs don't want that to happen to them. So they're being very cautious about vetting, choosing the right tools for their enterprise to be using and to be the authorized or approved tools. a lot of organizations CTOs are taking a lot of time to do this. And that means the staff, the workers, the marketing team or otherwise, don't have sanctioned tools at their disposal this afternoon. And so now we see what called gray market use, right? Meaning when I'm not on the VPN, when I'm not on the corporate
100%.
network, right? And I saw a study the other day that said almost 2/3 of employees privately admit to using gray market tools with confidential proprietary corporate data. So it's this weird, like, as much as CTOs are trying to be cautious in order to avoid privacy problems, that caution is causing privacy
Yeah,
problems.
yeah, isn't that interesting? And
Right.
if you do implement an enterprise AI, it better be a good one. It better have the same functionality as the tools outside, because if it's not, they're not going to use it. Even if you have it, I have one customer we work with. They do have an enterprise tool in house. I won't mention who it is, but
Mhm.
or what tool they have. But they talk about how it doesn't work and they have to go outside and do other things. So it's really, you're exactly right.
Yeah, and by the way, again, we don't want to throw shade here where it's unwarranted, but I hear a lot of teams say that my CIO has decided we're a Microsoft shop. We use PowerPoint, we use Outlook, we use Teams, and therefore you get Copilot and not even the best version of Copilot.
Yeah,
And the teams all know, right? Because they're helping their kids with their homework in the evening. They know that what they have at work is not anywhere near as good as the consumer AI they're using. So that
yeah,
like causes all kinds of privacy problems. All right. So the first is you have to have the right set of tools to avoid privacy problem. The second is you have to certainly have some policies in place. Every company should have a really robust AI policy, and that's not just sort of blocking and tackling what you can and can't do, but it's also your belief system around AI, right? And what will you use it for? What won't you use it for? And we've seen Unilever, for example, come out and say, you know what, we're in the skincare beauty category. We're not going to use it to have unrealistic imagery of humans for our beauty brands, right? So that's not a technical thing, right? That's a philosophy thing. So you need the right set of tools, then you need the right set of technical and philosophical policies. And then, of course, you need to train the people, right? Like you need to really sit and train your staff. I've seen lots of companies get through those first two hurdles, but then they just sort of send an email and say, it's live, have at it, right? And so, like you have to have a series of trainings. And I will say, I and many of us here at Northwestern have been, spent the past year and a half training our staff, right, at the
yeah,
university in the business school, like how can you make best use of these? And by the way, what are some of those washouts and cautions so that you don't run afoul and get yourself into some big trouble with some of the five dangers?
yeah. That's great. Okay. I want to be cognizant of time here, so I have a bunch to cover with you. But I wanted to get into a bit on, I have selfishly on the dad of some young kids and have some kids in school. Um, I saw something this morning on the local news about AI schools, and there's some AI schools where kids in high school are now going to these AI schools. Maybe it's even grade school. I don't know. And they work for 2 hours, trained by AI, educated by AI. I'm sure they have some, people that helping them there. But then the rest of the class day is all hands-on work in the stuff that they just learned. I mean, that's just one example of the disruption that's happening inside the education system with AI, not to mention you as a professor having students and needing to sort of guide students on how to use this stuff. Just what's your perspective on how education is changing or may change with all this technology?
So my feeling on this is that there's two types of knowledge broadly. There's durable or enduring knowledge, and then there's temporal or perishable knowledge. So, how to structure an argument, right? Like present your case. I guess that goes at least back to Plato and Socrates. It mattered for the last 2 millennium. And by the way, that's durable knowledge. If we're on this podcast, right, in another 1,000 years, we'll be talking like you need to know how to structure an argument, right? Um, Fine, but then there's also like perishable knowledge. And so if we were doing this as a marketer in the 1950s, you'd want to know how to put a successful radio drama together sponsored by your brand, right? Like not too many radio dramas sponsored by brand marketers today. But in the 50s, like that was a real deal, right? Like the Lux radio soap hour, those kinds of things. So that's perishable knowledge. So now, we need to make sure that we don't fall off the cliff either way, right? We don't want to ignore knowledge like how to use these AI tools of the moment and say, oh, that's not our job as educators. We only need to teach you the durable. No, we need to teach you both. But of course, we can't only teach you the temporal or the perishable stuff. Like when you set up a new account on TikTok, click the third
Hmm.
button when no, we need to teach you how to think too. And so, my philosophy and in my classes and, in our business school here at Kellogg, we try to balance those two things. So I love, the example that you give. In fact, I'll be teaching a new AI for marketers class starting in January for the first time. And yeah, we're going to sort of teach some of the enduring fundamentals about AI that go back to Alan Turing from 1950. But same thing, we're also going to have them build. So they will do everything from create ideal customer personas that they can chat with for their prime target audience. They'll be vibe coding landing pages and apps, all the same kind of stuff that you talked about, right? Hitting that right balance is difficult, but sort of durable and temporal is, I think, my overall philosophy on it.
Yeah, that's really good. And you can't sort of hack your way into the durable stuff. You just have to. It
No.
takes time. You have to invest energy into it. You got to think about things for a while. So it's really good. And I think there is a somewhat of a balance between the two. You can get to both, but I agree you could get really out of whack. That's why I worry about for younger generation is it's instant and temporal, which I'll start to use,
Yeah.
and it's not as durable, and that's going to really hurt because you need to make these tools work. You need context. That I mean, just can't. I mean, we had to build spreadsheets. You and
Yeah.
I, we were in
Yeah.
the spreadsheets,
Right.
manually building them. So, or staring at a blank page, that type of stuff that I just worry
Yeah.
about for our
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much to get through in the book. I wonder if you could, as we close the this portion up, if you could just talk about where, if you're a marketing leader who's listening to this, like where to start. Like what's the place to start? Is it the 2 box? I'm sure it's getting the book, but what would you recommend that they do today after listening to this?
Yeah, actually, I would say the first thing to do is that you personally, no matter how senior or junior you are, you personally need to invest at minimum 1 hour a week reading, learning, playing with these tools. And so, you know, uh, I did a seminar for a Fortune 500 corporate marketing team last week, and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Everybody is going to order a pizza tonight using ChatGPT agent and watch it take over the browser and click the buttons and order your cheese and pepperoni pizza, right? And so I use this analogy. It's like if you wanted to learn how to surf, you wouldn't watch a PowerPoint about surfing. I mean, I guess, you'd have the safety briefing from the instructor and maybe a little slideshow, but at a certain point, you got to get on the surfboard. So sure, yes, the 2x2 of use cases, yes, the 5 watchouts, yes, the 5 stages of the canvas. But even before that, you must book a sacrosanct hour on your calendar to read, learn, play, try, put the stuff on your phone that's uncancelable, immovable every week. At minimum 1 hour. I mean, you
Yeah.
and I do this kind of stuff for a living, and
Yeah.
we can't even keep up with it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It just surprises me that there, and I know there is, it's probably a good portion of executives don't do this because they don't have the time or their mind. Maybe they think I'm not technical, I can't do it. Gosh, we do this program here. We call it Sparks, and we do it once a month. I wish we could do it more often, but my team would kill me. And so we do exactly that. So we do like an exercise where everyone does it. There's a brief. They do it for a few days a week. It should take them only 30 minutes to an hour to finish the Spark, and then we present the Spark at the end. This week is this particular Spark is I think a lot of our employees go into Gemini, but they don't go into AI
Uh-huh.
Studio. And so I
Yeah.
wanted them to see what was in AI Studio. And so we created this silly little exercise they're going to do. And I think it's kind of like you get kind of okay, we're just so busy. But when you do it, when they see it, the light goes, a spark happens. It just like turns on and they can,
Yeah.
oh, wow, I might use this for these two things. So you
Yeah,
can't
that's
really,
great.
you can't really understand it unless you do it. You got to be in it.
That's
Um,
it.
so Okay, so I warned you about this. I do an AI roulette question. That's going to be the
Okay,
best question you've heard at least today on
let's
this
try it.
on this podcast. So I'm going to hit perplexity here. It's going to give me I've loaded in your profile a little bit about what we're going to talk about. So let me do this here fast. Okay. Your book provides a logical map for AI, but people are all often illogical. What's the most surprising human reaction you've seen to your framework, and what did it teach you?
Well, perplexity, good question. I think of a surprising reaction that I get is we don't have time for that. We need to just jump right to stage 5, or we're a big company. We don't waste time with all those basics. We just sort of jump to the end. And as you see in our conversation, Kevin, I like to often explain things through parallels or analogies or whatnot. But this sort of like, okay, if really, you would want to sort of jump in a Formula One Team Mercedes Petronas race car without having taken driver's ed, without having driven a minivan around the block? Like, really? You get yourself in some pretty bad trouble into the wall, right? On the fourth turn at the speedway there in Austin, all right? Crawl, walk, run, right? Like, no, there's a reason you can't just jump to stage 5, even if you have the will or the budget or the mental capacity. You got to work yourself through the stages.
Oh man, you mean I can't just go to monetization? I gotta make some. I got a number. I gotta be.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds funny when we say it. We have a little, sense of humor here, but I mean, even really, really great marketers, and I do mean this, like McDonald's, right? Like acquired a couple of companies early on in the early days, right, where they were trying to do some things with facial recognition through the drive-through, but
Mhm.
yet they hadn't collected the training data, right? Hadn't worked their way up the canvas. That's, remember, dynamic yield, right? They
Yeah.
end up selling that off to MasterCard, and now McDonald's do some really great things there. But I sort of say that as hey, if McDonald's can't just jump to stage 5, probably you can't either.
Right. And they do systems well, right?
Yeah,
Everything's a system. You just
yeah,
load that
right,
thing. They should be able to do it.
right,
Yeah, that's really,
exactly.
really good advice. Well done, Perplexity. Well, Jim, this has been fantastic. I got more out of this than I think I got out of my 4 years of undergrad.
Nah, too
I didn't
kind of
get
you.
much
Nah,
back in the day. No, I don't know if some of it applies. Maybe there's some durable stuff that I
that's
learned
it.
by. uh, but I follow you on LinkedIn. I definitely want people to pick up the book, and definitely the second edition. I can't wait to get. This has been fantastic. I'm so thankful that we met and that you joined me. Are there other ways that people can get a hold of you other than the LinkedIn?
Yeah, best way is to follow me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. I'm pretty active there, as you mentioned, and that's the best way to follow and find me.
Cool. Well, you're welcome anytime to Austin, and you got a free dinner at Guero's if you ever make it down
You're,
here.
you're on. Great. Thanks, Kevin.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jim.